Hello fellow bookworms, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So we're here today to talk about my December wrap-up. When I filmed my December TBR, I thought it would be fabulous to get 5.5 books read. 5.5 meaning the half of the book in November that I didn't finish would roll over, and then I would finish 5 more books. I thought, man, that's going to be a solid goal. I read 12. If that doesn't tell you what lockdown is all about, I don't know what does. Also, to be fair, some of the titles that I read were chef's kiss, were so good. I had a really great reading month. So many of the books I read were fabulous. So let's get into some of them. I'm going to start off with Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. Now, this book I read in 2 days. I started reading it in bed and I read till an ungodly hour. Ungodly for me. Usually I wake up at around like 5 a.m. for work and I go to bed around 8. So for me, staying up past like 8 to 9 p.m. is like blasphemous. So this, I stayed up till nearly midnight and then I realized what time it was, went to bed and finished it the next day. This book was a lot of fun. It wasn't like a 5-star for sure for me, but it was a lot of fun. So the main character, her name, what was her name? I'm so bad for this. I'll read the whole book and be like, I don't even know who they were. It was just the girl with the black hair and the guy with the black hair. Amelia and Vittoria. So Amelia has a twin sister, Vittoria. They are witches, and in this world, witches are kind of frowned upon. There's witch hunters, there's a big community in their local church that kind of like seeks out mythical abnormalities and tries to get rid of them or stifle those types of rumors. So this is the story of Amelia trying to investigate her sister Vittoria's death. And her sister was into some dark shit and told her nothing, which is fun. It's a fun adventure. She learns a lot about herself and about how resilient that she is in the face of a lot of adversity. There's some good things about this book and some things that I didn't love so much. Number one, if you were to lose your twin sister, I feel like you would have more of an emotional response than Amelia tended to have. There were some moments in the book that she had like breakdowns, but then she was able to go out and function and do the thing and crush it, and it's not really realistic. I know that it's a book and it doesn't add to the story to be like emotionally crushed, but some other books that I've read in the same month did that very well. So reading this one, I thought that it could have been done just slightly better, but I did really enjoy the characters and I enjoyed the world and I enjoyed the type of magic that was used. Overall, I say that this one would be between like 3.75 and 4 stars. I'm really bad at rating because my ratings always go up and then back down and then back up again because my mood changes. Am I right? So that was this book. It was enjoyable. If you're interested in reading this book, I would suggest it. It was a fun, quick read. The next book that I read this month was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I was very, very excited to read this book because everybody has this book in their like god tier level of incredible books. I get it. I completely understand why. I loved the character building in this book. I know so many books follow like 1 or 2 main characters, but this one went into first person view with like 5 different people. I really liked that. You get a more well-rounded view of the story, and I think that as a writer it takes more effort to see the same world and the same experiences through multiple people's point of view. So I really appreciated that about this book. Another thing that I really loved about this book was that it was an on your edge of your seat kind of read. It was a page turner. I couldn't put it down. It took me a little bit of, like a little while longer than usual to read a book of this volume. How many pages is this even? Buffering. 462. So it's not like the longest book in the world, but it took me a little longer to get through it because I had to intentionally slow myself down to understand what was happening in this book. Because it's just fast paced and there's a lot going on, but it's like Ocean's 11 or any heist kind of movie where if you miss something that's small, you miss a lot. So I had to intentionally slow my reading speed down, which I don't have to do all the time because some books I can just blow through it and I get everything and I understand it all and I didn't miss anything. but I found at the beginning of this that I was doing that and I was missing quite a bit, so I really slowed it down. I really enjoyed this book. Highly recommend if you haven't read this yet. I have the next book on my TBR for this coming month, which is a video that I'll post later on. So I'm excited to see what happens, and man, this ended on a cliffhanger. I really want to know what happens. The next book on my list that I read in December was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, and I really enjoyed this book. This book was very different than other books that I've read. The plot was different because I felt like the plot was driven by the circumstance and not so much around like something horrendous happening or this big event. It was more so like, this is how it is to be at this school, and that's kind of that. The school itself is, it's crazy. Think Harry Potter, but if Hogwarts was run by Voldemort. This is some dark stuff, and I really enjoyed it. The main character had a chip on her shoulder the whole time, and I loved it. She was rude, she was awful, but she was a product of her environment. She was never treated well going through life, and she learned how to take care of herself. I'm describing this so badly, but needless to say that she's not in any of the cliques. Nobody likes her, and soon, coming towards the end of this book, she makes friends based on her own merit and not based on any kind of pompous circumstance or title or name. So I really enjoyed this book. I recommend this book to you. I loved the style of writing. I loved the characters. I'm excited for the next one to come out this year. The next book on my list is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Now this book I enjoyed and I didn't enjoy simultaneously. I wasn't a huge fan of the relationship between the two main characters. It felt weirdly forced. I'm just not sure about it. I became more sure about it near the end of the book. When they were approaching the main conflict of the book, I thought it fit in a little bit better. But the main thing for me is that Reed is a man of faith, and he's been raised his whole life to believe a certain thing and think a certain way, and he was very easily persuaded over to completely drop all of his beliefs, and it was just too easy. I don't know. I really enjoyed the main female character as well. Lou was fun as well. I really loved how effervescent she was. She was strong, she was really independent, she knew exactly what she believed in and what she stood for. There's just some things that were, I don't know, weirdly unnecessary. Let's just point out, if you know, you know, big titty Liddy. Those could have been done in a different way. It screams young adult in a way that isn't really for me. I love young adults so much, but this just seemed like a little immature. I'm still invested. I really want to know what happens. I have the second book and I'm ready to read it this year, but I hope that the second book takes it to another level, because as it stands, this one was only okay for me. Next one makes me smile so much. It's Into the Land of the Unicorns by Bruce Coville. I got this at Value Village. It's super sweet. I read this book. It was one of my very first chapter books as a kid. It has a cute little note in the back of it for Tiffany. May this novel comfort you in the time of unrest and bring you inner peace till the storm blows over. Tiffany, I don't know who you are, but today I'm Tiffany because I need that message. COVID, man, I needed that message. What a fun little surprise in the back of this book. I was so in love with this story as a kid. I was so excited when I found this at Value Village. I literally jammed my arm into the shelf and was like, mine, I'm keeping this. So this is the story of Kara, and the very beginning, Kara and her grandmother are being chased through the city, and it's heart pumping and you're not knowing what's happening, and she ends up jumping off of a roof and ending up in this magical land of unicorns, and they go on this quest to figure out what's going on. She needs to help her grandma. Her grandma gives her a cryptic message for a cryptic person, and It's the journey to find that cryptic person, and she meets a gaggle of friends along the way, and it's just fun. Obviously, it's for kids, so it's not going to be in-depth character building or any of that kind of stuff. It's just a really fun story, and it genuinely just took me back to a time that was a lot more simple, when unicorns were the coolest thing in my life, and I really loved it. If you're into like middle grade, I really think you should read this one, especially if you want to believe in unicorns. Next on my list is the most beautiful book ever, Sky Hunter by Mary Lou. This book was so much fun. I really enjoy Mary Lou's writing. I loved her Legend series. I was super pumped to get into this book. I really enjoyed it. Many reasons, but one of the reasons I really enjoyed it is because the main character and the love interest, they weren't overly forced together. It seemed like a more natural progression into a relationship, which I really liked. And I loved the scene of going into war and the relationships between the good guys and the bad guys. And the cliffhanger at the end sent me. I've seen that Mary Lou is currently writing the second one, and every time she posts a story on Instagram about writing the second one, my heart skips a beat because I really want to know what happens. I really enjoyed this story. I don't think it's Mary Lou's best work. I still like Legend, the whole series, a little bit better, but I think that this series has so much potential, and I'm really excited to see what happens. So if you were on the fence about this book, you haven't read it, you want to read it, go read it. It's really, really good. It's a fun, fast read. It sets you up for a potentially fun series in the future. Read this book. Legendborn by Tracy Dion. I really enjoyed this book. This was a good one. It wasn't a 5-star read for me. However, I loved seeing people of color in a leadership role. There were things that were written about as the main character that I was like, never thought about that before. And that's exciting for me, and I would really like to continue reading books by people of color. I would really, really like to hear more of their stories, even if it is in a fantasy format, because it is valuable and we all need to be making the effort to do that. I really enjoyed this one. There were things about it that I really, really liked. I loved the main character. She was bomb. Bree. She was bomb. She was powerful, she was determined, she was gritty, she was powerful, and she was completely like, who is this girl? Where are her powers coming from? It was super tropey. Obviously it was like the new girl with all these powers. Who is this girl? I love that shit. Really enjoyed this. I also really enjoy the potential love triangle situation that's going on here. Obviously, I'm down for the dark and silent type. So yeah, really, really enjoyed that. I really loved seeing the whole process of her discovering herself, of her understanding her mother better and her heritage and where she came from. And yeah, you guys really just need to pick this book up and read it. It's, first of all, it's gorgeous here, but it's also gorgeous here, where it matters the most. If you are thinking about reading this book, this is the year. Pick this book up. I'm excited to see what happens in this story. All right, next up, I'm bringing out my fancy version because she's fancy. I read the entire ACOTAR series in December because I'm a monster. I couldn't put it down. This was so much fun. So, starting in book 1, A Court of Thorns and Roses. I was in love with Tamlin, guys. Shame on me. I thought he was great. He saved her from this horrible life. He brings her in and she's not even a slave. Turns out he had ulterior motives. Typical dude. However, it was just a fun read. I really liked the Beauty and the Beast style retelling of this book. I loved her. I loved Feyre. Feyre? Feyre. I'm new, okay? Don't slaughter me. I loved Feyre. I really, really enjoyed reading her, what do they call it in Marvel? Her, like, intro story, her origin story. I loved her origin story. I really loved the whole process going under the mountain. Rhysand, okay, I know I'm coming into this late, folks. I know that all of the books are written and whatever. I liked him from the moment I saw him. I'm like, this guy showed up on this hill in this moment, saves her life. Who is this dude? He's so mysterious. Who is this dude? He is Rhysand, folks. Anywho, on to book 2. My favorite is book 2, A Court of Mist and Fury, I think it is. Let's see. Yes, A Court of Mist and Fury. That one was my favorite. It was smut. I loved it. No shame. I really loved that book because it showed her development as a person, going from someone who was scared, someone who was confused, and someone who just didn't really know her place in the world, and just discovering her power. And she's got a truckload of it. I really liked watching her come into her powers. I really loved the developing relationship between her and Rhysand. That was a lot of fun to watch. It was sad to watch the demise kind of Tamlin, because if you look at Tamlin's life, if you look at the last 50 years before Feyre shows up, like, what a situation. The poor guy, like, his entire court is put under some stupid curse, and he truly falls in love with this girl, and she's not having it after a while. And I understand it's because his love is restrictive and somewhat abusive, but I feel for him a little bit, because I feel like he has come from a horrible situation in life and hasn't had a lot of good happen to him. And, like, I hope for the best for him. I hope that he can, like, learn and grow from here and find someone who's well suited to him, that he's going to treat well, and that will treat him well in return. Anyway, this is my sob story kind of moment. But I really loved the second book. It was great. It was tick. It was wonderful. That one, 10 out of 10, will be reading again. The third book was fabulous as well. Feyre knows who she is. She's got it down. She kind of does Tamlin and his entire court dirty, but I love to see the evolution of the relationship from, like, love to hate to accept at the end. And the whole battle, it was like I was on the edge of my seat. I have to read it again because I'm sure that I missed out on some important parts because I just needed to know what happened. I really had fun reading this series. It was great. I know that it might not be for everybody, but fantasy smut's my jam, man. I'm really enjoying getting into fantasy smut. I'm ordering more and more of it. I'm bored in the house, and I'm in the house fucking bored. So this is where we're at. Alright, next up I have a couple of audiobooks that I don't have with me. So the first one, which I will try to put here if my video skills are good, is Bone Crier's Moon. Now, I listened to this one. I really loved the audiobook version. I got it from Audible because it had 3 different narrators. One for Aless, one for Sabine, and one for Bastian. And I liked that it was easy to, in my head, differentiate between the characters. The book itself was great. Loved the idea, loved the plot. Some parts of it, because I couldn't skim through it and read it really fast and kind of like get through it, some parts were freaking frustrating because the struggle, I hate watching people struggle. The struggle was so real. They were like losing their bones and then finding their bones again, and like, oh, the bridge would crack and then there was an explosion. It was just intense. I really enjoyed it. It was frustrating in a good way. I recommend this book. It was a lot of fun. I hope the next one makes me want to pull out my hair too. I really want to see the continuation of what happens. The end was great. Bursts into the room. I'm gonna help. Girl power kind of thing. If you know, you know. I'm excited to read the next one in this series. The very last one that I took in the month of December, I will input here again, was Imposters by Scott Westerfield. Now, this book was fun. It is a continuation of the Ugly series. Well, not really continuation, but it's in the same world. So I've read one book out of that whole series because I want to finish it. I have all the books. I thrifted them all. The whole series probably cost me like 20 Canadian dollars, which is insane, but there's too many books that I want to get to first and I'm just not motivated to pick them up. But I did get a audiobook version of Imposters, so I enjoyed it. It was pretty simple. The relationship that was in the book was like super easy. It was very typical YA. It was just a fun listen. It wasn't too deep. The second book is already out and I'm going to try to find it on my Libby app because I recently found Libby and it's fantastic. So you use your library card and you can listen to audiobooks for free, which is like, thank the Lords. But I'm going to try to find it on there and listen to it in the following months just so I can hear the end of the story. For me, it was like middle grade, wasn't great, wasn't horrible, fun story, something good to do while I'm on my walks and stuff. So, yeah, if you're interested in that world, go for it, listen to it, it was fun. So that concludes my December wrap-up. I was a busy bee. It was really nice to have some time off over Christmas. I took about 5 days off, so I got a lot of reading done in those 5 days, which was glorious. And because things are so slow right here, right now, I'm doing a lot of my work for my other work, the work that I don't do when I'm reading books. It's mostly online right now, and I have a few clients that I've been meeting in person, but not right now because I'm locked down. So it's giving me a lot of time to read more. So 12 books in 1 month is out of this world for me. I've never done that before. And I don't know if I'll ever do it again. I will see, I suppose. I really enjoyed it, but I'm not giving myself the expectation to read 10 to 12 books every single month. I'm going to pick up books that I'm interested in reading and go for it. So I will be posting a January TBR very shortly because I want to share what I'm interested in reading and I want to hear feedback on the stuff that you guys really loved, or maybe some recommendations based on the books that I have read of things that you think I should read soon. So that will be posted probably next week. So thank you very much for coming and joining me and listening to me ramble about the books that I read. If you have any suggestions for future content or any kind of suggestions on the content that I've already been producing, if you have any kind of like feedback, I would love to hear it. Thank you very much for joining me and have a lovely, lovely day.